I am going to talk about the purpose of identifying audience categories. Different audience require different levels of information. Identifying the audience helps you to determine the level of detail that you need to include in your speech. When you communicate, your purpose is not what you want to do. Instead, it is what you want your audience to do as a result of your speech. It is important to identify the audience. Knowing the audience helps you figure out what content and message people care about. Once you have identified the target, you are able to establish the appropriate tone and voice, what language to use, and what information should be included in your speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So next, I will be talk about category of audience analysis. First category of audience analysis is demographic analysis. Demographic, a classification of a characteristics of the people. As a public speaker, it is important for you to know about its age, gender, its race. So there are two steps doing an accurate demographic analysis. First is gathering demographic data and interpreting this data. Why is it important? Because you will be more inclined to talk to issues bearing upon those data that you collect. Simply the purpose of doing this demographic to embed within your message the acceptable parameters of your audience range of need. Next, situational analysis. This category is primarily concerned with why your audience is assembled in the first place. So there are three types of situation audience. Captive audience, which is your audience is considered captive audience, is generally some of the most difficult audience to address because these members are being forced to listen to a message. Voluntary audience, which is a contrast for that captive audience. A voluntary audience is willingly to assemble to listen to a given message. These audience are much easier to address because they are interested to hearing the speech. And lastly, sometimes audience are mixed in their situational settings too. Mixed audience situation is a hybrid captive voluntary audience. So you should begin this wonderful opportunity by considering ways to inform, persuade, and humor a mixed situation audience, and you will do just fine.
Next is multicultural analysis. To become a culturally effective speaker, there are three things that you need to be aware of. Firstly is the usage of slang or jargon in your speech. Be aware that there might be people in the audience who are not fluent in the language that you are speaking in, and so they might have a hard time trying to understand the terms you're using. Therefore, it's best if you use simple terms to explain the topic instead. Secondly is the issue of ethnocentricity. Ethnocentricity is basically the assumption that a certain culture is better or more dominant than other cultures, and so this might drive a wedge between you and the audience. Therefore, please avoid this issue at all costs in your speech. Next is communication styles. Communication styles is something that is different for every culture. Some cultures prefer a more animated way of speaking, for example, Japan, and some cultures might prefer a more laid-back and calm delivery style instead. So you must adjust according to the culture that you are addressing to. Next, let's move on to the interest and knowledge analysis. In this analysis, it's very simple. There are only two things that you need to ask yourself. Firstly is, are they interested in what I have to say? And secondly, how much do they already know about this topic? So, before you start preparing for your speech, ask yourself and ask other people around you to know what the audience wants when you're delivering your speech, so that their points will not fall upon deaf ears.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm gonna talk about suggestions of how to grab audience attention according to each category. There are 5 effective tips to grab and hold audience attention. The first one is surprise. How to surprise the audience? Say, do, or shout something that's shocked or unexpected. It can be as simple as a loud noise, a clap, or a few notes of music. The second one is cognitive dissonance. Keep your audience guessing and hold their brains off balance by feeding bits of information. The third one is storytelling. Tell an interesting story that complements the presentation. The fourth one is involve. Ask your audience to participate, play a game, pose a question, solve a puzzle, or perform an exercise. The last one is senses. The more senses, hearing, sight, taste, smell, and touch, you engage, the stronger the interest. For example, play sad music, shout images of neglected animals, and give your audience a cuddly puppy toy to pet while telling a moving story about animal rescue. That's all from me. Thanks for your attention.
Audience analysis can be done through direct observation or direct experience. This is a qualitative data gathering. So, we can obtain this data from our 5 natural senses, such as hearing, smelling, touching, tasting, and seeing. Because knowledge that we obtain through personal experience has more impact on us than the knowledge that we learn indirectly. This is also more likely to affect our thinking and will retain for a longer period of time. What we really need to do for this method of observation is examine our audience. Then we will be able to gather some basic reflective data. Whenever possible, try to have a conversation with them or interact with them. Then we will know what interests them, convinces them, or what they want to hear from us. Audience analysis by inference is merely a logical extension of our observation drawn in the previous method. It is a form of critical thinking known as inductive reasoning, and another form of qualitative data gathering, same as direct observation. So, an inference is when we make a reasoned tentative conclusions or logical judgment on the basis of available evidence. Then, it is best used when we can identify pattern in our evidence that indicate something is expected to happen again or should hold true based upon previous experiences. So, a good speaker knows how to interpret information and draw conclusions from that information. As individuals, we make inference or reasonable assumption all the time.
Thank you, Mus. So, I will continue our topic here in method used to identify the audience category. Number 3 is a data sampling. What is data sampling? Data sampling is a technique of selecting individual members or a subset of the population to make statistical inference from them and estimate characteristic of the whole population. Last but not least, the number 4 is a basic questionnaire. A questionnaire is a research instrument that consists of a set of questions or other type of prompts that aims to collect information from a respondent. These questions probe more deeply into the side of your audience member and will help you see where they stand on certain issue.